feel like sometimes life is really mental.
Dude, that's actually a really good name for a podcast.
You have to be your own best friend to a certain extent. If you don't love yourself, if you don't love what you see in the mirror, then you're always going to compromise and let go of certain values that you have for another person, because you're going to try to find your identity in someone else rather than just being you.
Hey everyone, welcome to Really Mental, where we want you to know no matter who you are, you're not alone. This week we have an episode with Jenna Raine, who is an incredibly talented singer-songwriter and actress as well. Very excited to get into today's episode and really excited to just hear her thoughts on what we're talking about, which is relationships and also people pleasing, which is something that I am definitely guilty of and trying to work on. So if you're like me or just interested in that topic, then make sure you stick around. And if you're new here, make sure you follow us on our socials at Really Mental Media and rate this 5 stars if you're enjoying it so that we can reach more amazing people like you. So without further ado, we're going to hop into the conversation with Jenna. And if you pick up anything interesting, make sure you send it to a friend as well.
Jenna, welcome to Really Mental. I wanted to ask you to start us off with, for those who don't know you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a singer-songwriter and I live in LA. I just moved from Texas about a year ago. I grew up there. I'm very much a small town girl living in a big city, which can be very overwhelming a lot of the times. But I grew up doing music starting around 10 years old, very passionate about it. I love sports. I love a lot of music and boba, and I think that's about it.
Nice. When it comes to moving from Texas to LA, obviously I'm sure there's some things that are specific to those places, but just overall, how did you find it moving to a new city?
It's definitely been a process. I grew up traveling here, like I said, around 10 years old, and my mom was traveling with me because I wasn't an adult yet. It was really fascinating, kind of grew up with a lot of the kids that grew up in the music and acting industry. And I had gotten a gist of what I didn't want to be a part of friend group wise, and had gotten a taste of that and realized that I just didn't always have the best of friends around me sometimes. And so when I moved out here officially, I just wanted to be very particular about the people I surrounded myself with. And so I was very picky about my friends. I had 2 best friends, which I think is really all that you need when you move to LA. But a lot of days were very overbearing because of the lack of community.
When you say lack of community, how do you mean? And how does that kind of impact your life?
I think community is a funky word in LA because a lot of people have friends and they're more so acquaintances that are competitive with one another because they're in the same field, and it's not a true friendship. And there's just not much community here. It's really weird. And so it takes a lot of, I don't know, just like sifting out certain people and being like, oh, wait, that person might not be great to keep in my life. And I do it out of love and kindness. I don't just drop people. I'm not a person that drops friendships, but the people that I spend my actual time with, I'm very specific with, because a lot of people don't have great community.
Totally. Yeah, I think it takes a lot more work to find it here. And I think as well, because everyone's away from their family too, it's like this weird environment where it's like just a bunch of younger people that are for Thanksgiving all figuring out what to do, whether they're going to go home or if they're in the city, who are they going to spend that with. So it's such an interesting dynamic. When it comes to, I guess, filtering through people and also giving people a chance when you're moving to a new city, how do you prioritize your own self while also trying to at least give people the chance to make a good impression on you?
No, that's a great point. I think at the same time, what I said about my 2 best friends is that they were friends that were pouring into me as a person. And they were present and consistent in my life. And when I had that, it was easier for me to go get coffee or hang out with friends that I was unsure about. And I think I spent a lot of high school being there for everybody and being everybody's therapist. But I was like, I can't do that moving out here, specifically with how just people are just awful here sometimes. And they seem as if they're being a great friend to you, but then in reality, they just could drop you within a second. And it's so sad and it's so scary. I think it was easier for me to give people a shot when I had that comfort in my other 2 best friends being in my life. So it was I always had, I don't want to say a safety net, but in a way I had 2 girls that were safety nets.
It's tough to balance that part of you that like wants to give to people, and also I guess the part of yourself that you have to separate yourself from people that aren't good. How do you go about doing that in a way which like feels genuine and like you're not being taken advantage of to the point where you're like pouring into others?
Yeah, I think it takes a certain discernment of knowing the certain people that are trying to take advantage of you and only want you for what you do instead of who you are. And it's definitely been a journey of figuring that out. But I just take a step away from those people, because also you realize once you stop putting effort into a friendship, does that other person just let you fall out of their life? If it's just you pushing and hanging out and doing fun things, then once you stop making an effort, they're just not in your life anymore. It's very much so a one-sided friendship. And so if I see that in people, it's honestly not that hard to step away because they genuinely don't care about me. It's more so being like, where am I pouring out my love and where am I pouring out my energy?
How do you figure out the right people to surround yourself with?
I think for me, I'm not like, I don't go out. I don't really like party or anything. I'm a homebody and I play pickleball and I like to eat food and hang out and sing music with my friends. And I think the person that you are, you just gravitate towards people that are like that. It just takes a minute to find them.
Yeah. I love that you do have that discernment. I think that's important. Does it ever get lonely, or did it ever get lonely during that time? And how did you handle those emotions?
Yeah, it definitely got very lonely. When my two best friends were busy and they just weren't available to hang out, it was very tough. And I'm also in a long distance relationship and he's in Texas. And even staying on FaceTime with my boyfriend, it was just like, yes, that's super sweet. And we were able to chat a lot more, but in need of community, it just wasn't a thing. So I turned to pickleball. And there's actually pickleball courts that are super close to me. And I met the whole entire community and met some people around my age that went to the courts. And when I tell you I played pickleball every single night for 3 hours after my songwriting sessions for at least 6 months, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
I feel like sport can be such a good unifying thing, even something like pickleball.
I guess I wanted to ask, when it comes to community whilst maintaining a long distance relationship, how do you find that, and what advice would you give for those that are also in a long distance relationship?
That's a great point. I think the great thing about a long distance relationship is you're able to grow individually as well as grow with one another. And so long distance really does force you to go outside of your shell, because I remember all of high school, the only time I felt super duper comfortable in big group settings was when my boyfriend was there. And so now that he's not with me and he is miles and miles away, it's forced me into hanging out with people. My boyfriend is the most social human being in the whole entire world. He could talk to a wall for hours and care so much about this wall and ask the most brilliant questions just to get to know somebody. And sometimes I'm not fantastic at that. So it's been really great for me to go outside of my shell and trying to be a bit more outgoing and meeting friends and meeting new people. It's been a huge lesson for, I think, both of us, because long distance is also hard because I'm such a social butterfly at the same time that it takes a lot of communication for us specifically.
When it comes to like, I guess, going through that, and like for the people listening that are maybe thinking of doing that, or they're in that and they're trying to work on trusting their partner through that, how do you build like strong trust generally in a relationship, but also specifically when it comes to long distance?
I think it depends on the person. The easy thing about me and my boyfriend is we had already almost been dating for 3 years when we started long distance. And I just trust him with my whole entire heart. And I think if you don't trust somebody at a certain point, it's not the right person. We both trust each other with everything. There's not a single thought in my mind, and I know for a fact in his mind, that is of ill intent. Just being in separate places and not having your girlfriend there, not having your boyfriend there. Certain people think that your mind would go a different way and be like, maybe, just maybe I'll find someone out here instead. But we've always had the complete opposite thought of this is just a journey that both of us are about to go on individually, and we're going to keep each other updated on it. And at one point, we're going to get to live the same life again. And that's how we go about it.
I find it really hard, to be honest, as a personal thing for like relationships, right? I think the one thing that I really struggle with is relationship anxiety, and this anxiety if someone's going to leave, or they're going to have ill intent, or they're not going to be trustworthy. When it comes to someone's own personal issues with that, say, for example, me struggling with trust as a baseline, what advice would you give those to maintain and sustain a healthy relationship, whether it's long distance or in person or all of those types of things after a long period of time?
A lot of it is making sure that you're not completely codependent on your person. I'm not codependent. I am very independent. The only thing that I struggle with is talking to a stranger. And I love to go out and do my own thing. And I've always been that way. So it's easier for me to say. I think the thing with long distance relationships and relationships in general is that people just completely combine their life with somebody that, I don't know, you're not, in my mind, and this is just like the way that I grew up, but if I'm like not married to the person, they don't get every single piece of my life. I'm going to continue to try to have certain parts of my life that feel somewhat separate. I don't want H to feel attached to every single little thing that I do. Because if we were ever to break up, and I genuinely don't think we're ever going to, but I think this is what got me through it like a year or two ago, was if we were to ever break up, there are certain parts of my life that still feel like my own. And things would obviously still be hard. But the anxiety of him leaving or breaking up with me was nowhere near as bad when I felt that there were parts of my life that I still got to have. Just, oh, this is like Jenna's thing. This isn't Jenna and H's thing. This is Jenna's thing. And it was just cool to keep a boundary of some sorts, even though we did everything together. But I think in a way it's a blessing to be independent when there's no promise in that someone's not going to break up with the other person. But again, trust is just such a thing. And luckily I was given the best guy in the whole entire world at such a young age. And so I can't even imagine having that anxiety.
Yeah, I think two parts to that. To the anxiety part, I think it's from being burnt. A lot of people, I think, have been in terrible relationships or been with people who aren't the best, that have treated them a certain way, and then they need to re-figure out what a relationship looks like again, because what they've been put through is not necessarily what a true relationship is. I think for you, I wanted to ask, what parts of your life do you have that are just yours, that you're saying? Yeah.
In a way, my music is just me. It's a form of therapy. And also my faith is such a huge thing in my life. And like, I know people always get scared of the idea of God or Jesus, but to me, since a kid, that was always my thing. And I was like, I'm just going to hold on to this dearly. This isn't going to be anyone else's thing but mine. And just to even feel that solidified in my own identity has been so helpful. And that's been mine. My career has always been mine. And I've never sacrificed career things for my boyfriend. That has never been the case. And I think a lot of people start to sacrifice certain morals or just certain dreams because of their partner. And that's something I've always tried to steer so clear from. So just no matter what your belief is, and no matter what the dreams you're trying to chase, you should never feel like you need to completely sacrifice and give those things up for the person that's gonna love you.
I agree. I think it gets really complicated when it goes to the place of, what if you never find someone then? Because I think it depends on what your views are and what your things are. But I think in today's society, there's a lot of people that want to really emphasize on drugs and partying and stuff. And if you're not like alongside that, and if you don't believe in that stuff, it can be really hard to find a partner and to find someone who you really like and aligns with your values and morals without letting go of some of that and being, I guess, in a sense, compromising on those values and stuff. How do you balance that and the fear of kind of not being alone forever?
Yeah. I think you have to be your own best friend to a certain extent. If you don't love yourself and you don't love what you see in the mirror, then you're always going to compromise and let go of certain values that you have for another person, because you're going to try to find your identity in someone else rather than just being you. And I think your identity needs to be rooted in you, and you need to basically I don't want to say be in love with yourself and be like cocky, and that's not what I'm saying, but truly loving who you are, I feel like is such a huge part, and like being confident enough to be like, what? I'm awesome, and I'm going to find someone that is like a similar human to me, that has like similar beliefs, similar lifestyles, whatever it is. But I think if you just don't have that sense of identity, then you're just going to search that in other people and you're going to get even more lost because you're not them, but you're going to try to be them because you're not on the same page about certain things. It's just a tricky thing. I think identity is like the main thing.
I think it's also easy to lose yourself too. That's a really tricky thing to navigate that like young people don't necessarily talk a bunch about because we just have this perception of what love is from like films and stuff. And so when we end up in like a codependent like thing, it's not as though like we know, okay, it just got codependent. We have to like figure this out. So it is interesting hearing you talk about it. And it sounds like you do have a really stable relationship and like sense of self from that, which is like super healthy, which is awesome. I guess what came to mind for me is like when it comes to those non-negotiables you were talking about before, of not sacrificing certain parts of yourself that make you, what do you think people should look out for and I guess try and hold on to when they're in a relationship with this person that they're super excited about? What do you think they have to make sure they hold on to when it comes to that?
The first thing for me, depending on people's family situation, but people that you consider family and consider close enough in your life, not that they necessarily need to approve of the person that you're like dating and stuff. But for me, I always put my family first, and I personally trust my family's opinion. And that was something I was always looking out for. And I think one thing that you always need to keep for yourself is your dreams and aspirations, because I think a lot of people sacrifice that and try to mend it to fit their partner and fit their lifestyle. And there's going to be a huge void that you're now putting on your partner to fill because your like passion isn't being completely, it's just not, the cup isn't filled up because you're just like making sacrifices. And then at one point you're just going to have resentment towards your partner. And that's just not what you want. So I think for me, it was my dreams and aspirations, obviously my faith and beliefs and lifestyle and whatever that means for certain people. Like, unless your partner is pushing you towards a healthier side of lifestyle and you're like, oh wait, this is awesome. Like, I do want to shift that a little bit. I don't think you should shift your lifestyle as well, like certain things that you do. I don't know. There's just certain things that I think people should keep that make them. And it's really sad to watch a lot of my friends compromise their life and compromise beliefs and just what they want to do for their dreams because they want to satisfy the person that they're in love with.
What do you think about the idea of relationships being like a team?
Oh, I think it's 100% a team. I think for me specifically, and especially with long distance, whether my boyfriend does something that upsets me or I do something that upsets him, we just have to remind ourselves we're on the same team. We want the same end game. Like, why are we at each other's throats? And we just have to step back and be like, okay, what's actually bothering you? What's actually bothering me about this situation? And I think that's very validating, because if you invalidate someone else's feelings just because you like want to be in the right, that's just not a way to be in a relationship. That's not the point of a relationship. Like, you're neither or is like right or wrong. Like, at one point you just need to call it a tie and be like, I understand what made you feel that way. As long as you understand what made me feel that way, yes, I'll remember that for next time. And like, I'm so sorry that happened. And that's like end of discussion. I don't think there should ever be me or you. Like, it's more of a team effort of just like getting through the hard conversations rather than me against you.
When it comes to like the hard conversations, it made me think like for some people that's like really difficult. For you, what would you say is the most difficult thing about being in a relationship that you're like working on?
It's just like draining sometimes. Working through those things can just be really hard. Relationships are tiring. And I genuinely think that's the point that people are like, because of TV shows and movies, they're like, this isn't what love is supposed to feel like. I'm out. I'm not having the hype or the excitement of the relationship with this person anymore. And it's like, as long as there's an even split of working through things, because at this point, a lot of your life is slightly combined. And so you're a similar person at this point, and you're going to have to work through hard conversations when you're that close to somebody. And I think anybody that tries to stay away from that and stay away from that closeness, and once they're comfortable, they're like, this isn't fun anymore, I'm out. Like, I just don't really understand that, like, personally, because I want someone that, like, knows me more than anybody in the whole entire world. Invalidating someone's feelings is the most unfair thing in the whole entire world.
Do you ever feel like at such a young age, being in such a long-term relationship, that you're ever missing out on certain areas of life that you would get if you're single?
I've given this a lot of thought, and I watch my other friends flirt with other people and go on fun dates, but it's unfulfilling. And at the end of the day, they're so lonely. And I'm like, I'm not lonely. And I feel like my life feels very much, there's not a void I'm trying to fill. And I'm like, you know what? I must be doing something right. I don't think I want to take steps backwards and be like, maybe just to be single, I should be single. Because I'm so independent that it's not like I'm like codependent on my boyfriend that is living super duper far away. So at the same time, I'm growing a lot individually, doing my career and the way that I want to do it. And I feel like if he weren't in my life, finding a boyfriend in LA would probably be the most disastrous thing I could possibly do.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's definitely interesting. There's a beauty in both. I think I definitely agree with you on the terms of relationships a lot more satisfying long term, but I feel like I've learnt so much from dating people. Like figuring out even what I like, what I don't like, what I personally stand for, that I didn't realize that would even come to the top of my head, because seeing what other people do, you go, oh, okay, no, I don't really like that. Or like, oh, I like that they did that. You know what I mean? Like those types of things. And I feel like dating, I've really learned a lot from that. I really do see the value, for me at least, in what I did to find that. But if you're in a happy relationship that's long term, that's not going to change, that there is no tangible point to dating. You've already skipped that part. But for people that are dating as well, I would say what I've learned is going into it is just like figuring out what you like and learning from the people that you're seeing.
Yeah. I think if the case had been different and I had started dating a guy that I was like, you know what, there's a lot that's not lining up here. He's driving me absolutely insane. And at this point, I'm just sticking with him because I'm avoiding heartbreak. Yeah, you should definitely start dating, because you're in that moment realizing what you don't want in a person. So you might as well just not be in the relationship. And yeah, I just haven't ever been at that point that I was like, you know what, this isn't the guy for me. So many things have lined up. It's actually insane, like how perfect, how compatible we are. And so I'm like, every single time I think of what would happen if we break up, I would honestly just wish him the best and be so upset that I wasn't the lucky girl that got to end up with him, because he's that great.
I think that's when you know that something's not clicking, when you start to think about, oh, what's it? I wonder what it'd be like if I was dating someone else or something. And there's also, you have to be careful too, because there's commitment issues if you're like if you're unable to like settle down and it's a consistent thing and you're like always wondering, there could be someone better. There could be like a commitment issue element to that. I just feel like the place that I'm at now, I've realized the brutal truth that nobody is going to like fix like the work that I have to do myself, or like no one can give me the love that is going to fully make me whole, because I have to make sure I'm giving that to myself. And then it's like the cherry on top, I feel like. And I think before, which was part of a more anxious attachment style, I would say, that I had, it was just like, I felt like someone could like fill that for me. I think that's another element of dating where it's just like, at the end of the day, you don't really know them that well. Like they're just another human, and you're figuring it out, but it's like it's not like you have to attach right on and be like, oh, this is going to be the person that's going to solve my things. If it is, and it is like Jenna's situation, and it turns out to be, that's awesome. Yet at the same time, it's just like, you almost can't plan for that.
I do want to say to everyone listening as well, seeing people casually is not a bad thing. I want to make sure everyone knows and hears that we're not judging this. No one is judging it. Everyone is different. There is no good or bad. As long as you're really upfront with your intentions with people and what you're looking for and what you want, all of it is just particular to yourself and what you're looking for at that moment in time. You might want a relationship. You might want something that's long term. That's it. You might just want something very casual, the 3-month thing, as Jenna said, or something like that. And none of it's bad. None of it's bad. It's just what you're looking for at that time and moment. Because a lot of young people don't want the commitment of a relationship right now. And that's okay, because you don't need it. You're trying to figure out your own self before you give yourself to someone else and you work with someone else. and that's
Yeah.
totally understandable. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask, with people pleasing, how do you find that in a relationship? Do you feel like you ever have to like people please your partner?
Oh, yes. All the time. I actually I think a lot of the time will be I'm not speaking my heart or my truth because I'm like, it's going to hurt him. So I'll just hold it in and I'll keep it to myself. Or he's obviously having a really hard time right now. So I'm just not going to say anything because he's the one who brought up this conversation. And I will hold back my feelings and what I'm going through in my heart. And he's very forward with like how he feels. And obviously it depends on the person, but I'm just such a people pleaser that I just won't say things sometimes because I want to please him. I want to please people. But it's literally the whole point of being a people pleaser. And so I've really been trying to be either don't say anything or I'm like super quick to being like, okay, I've had enough of trying to fight this battle. And I just don't snap, but I'll just like come out of the blue, let it all out. And I've been really trying hard to be like quick to listen instead of like quick to speak, and then like slow to anger and slow to speak is like more so what I'm trying to go with. And so that's been really like a whole process for me, and I think it's a bit of maturity that's needed in that, because even with friendships, like I just feel such a need to please all of my friends. If they do anything that bothers me, I'm like, you know what, it's fine. I see the good in people. It's fine. Just let it pass. And then certain things will happen over and over again to the point that I'm like, enough, I can't handle this, rather than just speaking up front about the first time that it's happened.
Where do you feel like your people pleasing comes from?
My mom. And I don't think I've ever said that to her face, but she knows it. We were both such people pleasers. And I think growing up, I grew up like one out of 5 siblings. And so I was the youngest. And so I was always trying not to make someone upset or angry. And I was just trying to make it like a happy home, a happy place. And I didn't have any super crazy struggles growing up with my family. But just, I don't know, there's something about my mindset and maybe watching my mom be a people pleaser. I was like, oh, that's how she gets through it. So I'm going to do that.
You mentioned a few times not changing for anyone and not doing any of that. How do you balance that with being a people pleaser as well? If you can't say no to someone, how do you set those boundaries?
It's tough. It's actually really tough. I don't even know if I've given that too much thought. I think when people attack my character or attack who I am, I immediately get very defensive because I'm like very proud of the person that I am, and I just have a very strong sense of my identity. And so when people like take it to that point, it's okay. That's when I like get upset. Me actually being upset if anyone just attacks my character or my intentions, because I know my heart and I know what I mean when I do certain things, and my intentions are never to hurt anybody or judge anyone. And so when people ask me to do certain things, there's just a certain line, especially with my morals. There's just certain things like with my like what I want, like morally and like in my beliefs, that's when I feel the comfortability to say no. But anything other than that, like with time and energy and like hard work, I will say yes any day. And that's what drains me. Like the harder decisions I can say no to for some odd reason. But like the easy every single day questions that a lot of people are like, I don't want to do that. Sorry, no thanks. I just don't have that in my bones. Not there.
For those listening, what advice would you give them to stop their people pleasing and really just become an independent person that isn't trying to impress everyone?
Life is so short. I think about it all the time. I blinked and now I'm 19. Life is too short to be drained by people. You don't owe anyone anything. And I think that's been my biggest lesson is I don't owe anything to anybody, especially to a people pleaser. Obviously, I'm not saying that for people that like take advantage of people and are just like, I don't owe anyone anything. They helped me out. It's fine. Like whatever. I'm talking specifically to the people pleasers of like, you just need to owe yourself certain things and take time and sit in what's draining you and who's pouring into you as a friend and pouring into your life and benefiting not only your life, but your heart and your mind, and who's pouring into you as a friend. And if you're not doing that for yourself, it's going to be hard to see that in the people around your life. And you should definitely focus on the friendships that you feel are impacting you in a great way. And if you're that type of people pleaser, you need to have your friends hold you accountable. I think if there's anyone in your life that could hold you accountable for being such a people pleaser and they see that in your heart, then you should keep those people around.
With where you're at now, what are your kind of goals with what you want to achieve? And when it comes to people pleasing, what do you want to change?
I want to start doing things for me rather than for other people. And I keep thinking that I've gotten better at that. But even like writing music, I feel like oftentimes in the studio, I'll find myself being like, oh, I think like someone from my team or someone from my life will be happy if I write a song like this, rather than just being like, what does Jenna want to do? I think my main goal, like overall, is that I just want to be a light in a very divided world. And I want to be a safe space for people that just provides happiness and joy. And that's all I want to do is I want to be a friend to people through my music and provide a friend that they haven't been able to find yet.
Wow, that's awesome. And I love that mission. It's a strong
Thanks.
purpose. We do a segment to wrap things up where it's 3 life questions. And we ask everyone, we have different ones. Is there someone in your life that, or an event that you feel like you haven't been able to forgive? And if so, as much as you can, like what was the event and how do you think you can heal from it?
Forgiveness is the key to happiness. I've forgiven a lot of people that don't even know that I've forgiven them. I think, and maybe this is the people pleaser thing, but I feel like I literally can't hate anybody. I actually can't. Because in my mind, I'm like, we're all just people trying to live life. And everyone's in their own body with their own mind. And I'm like, you know what? I feel for them. The fact that they even felt the need to do that to me, there's something that they're going through that made them say that to me or do that to me and just be hurtful. It just makes me empathize what in the world they've been going through their whole entire life to make them think what in the world that was okay to do that. And so I've forgiven a lot of people that don't even know that. And I've felt so much freedom from that. And I think forgiveness is 100% the first step to healing, especially in yourself. And I think, I don't even know, I haven't even really talked to my dad about this, but I think a part of me maybe like growing up, because he never meant to, but he put a lot of pressure on me in my career at a very young age. And I don't think I had fully ever forgiven him for putting me through that. And like in my own time and sitting still and like, I just like forgave him, like out loud, forgave him for every little thing that he'd put me through. And I immediately felt so much freedom from it. And I was like, wow, like I don't, and that's another person that I've always felt the need to please are like my parents and specifically my dad. And since forgiving him, I've felt less and less, oh, I need to please my parents, and more so I'm an individual human and I can do whatever I please. I should not feel the pressure from him that I feel. I think forgiveness is a strong thing that we can do as humans, even if you don't verbally say it to them, but in your heart knowing, I forgive you for hurting me is just such a strong thing to say. And I've been hurt so many times by specifically friendships and friends. And I think forgiving them and just being there if they come knocking again is the best thing you can do as a human, because at the end of the day, everybody's just a little bit lonely.
Wow, that's awesome. I think it's so easy to be prideful too when someone wrongs you
Yeah.
and almost like shut people out. And when my friend asked me that question, I love that that was the answer for you. For me, I have someone in mind from like years back. And I'm like, there's a part of me now where I've realized I'd probably have a conversation with that person before like just, okay, cut, done, you're gone. I don't like I had every reason to, but I
Yeah.
still feel like now how I would handle it would be like, okay, I want to have a conversation about this and you're going to know how I feel and I want to hear how you feel and where you're coming from. And maybe that's maturity and we don't always get it right. Thank you, Jenna, for coming on. That was awesome to speak to you. You're a super talented musician and I love the mission behind what you're doing. And you were very open about everything. So thank you for sharing.
I really loved that episode today with Jenna. I think it was really interesting when she spoke about the sense of community and kind of needing that, as well as relationships and how you can have a sustainable long distance relationship and grow individually, but also as a unit, and the importance of teamwork in a relationship. So I think those that are navigating their relationships or wanting to get into a relationship and are really looking for some guidance around the area, this episode is amazing for you. And I think the biggest takeaway is don't force something that doesn't feel right. The right person will find you and the right person will match what you're looking for at the end of the day. And you will know and it will feel right. If it's been 3 years and you've been with someone and it just doesn't feel right, don't be afraid to cut it off and just believe in your intuition. So with that in mind, be sure to share this with a friend, and thank you for sticking this far. Be sure to follow us at Really Mental Media, and we'll see you next week with an amazing guest. So we'll see you then, and thank you.